So thank you all for coming. Um, Hope you're all staying safe at home, washing your hands, practicing social distancing, all that. First, we're going to cover a couple ground rules for meetings going forward. So just to prevent background noise, microphone failures, whatnot, I'm going to set you all to mute, but you can unmute yourselves at any time if you have a question, a comment, something like that. If you want to do that, you can just hold down your space bar to do that, and you can talk, and then once you let go, it'll go back to mute, or you can unmute yourself by clicking the microphone button. None of you can share your screens, so none of that nonsense that we've been seeing with people's classes. Yeah, so we'll just end up screen sharing the presentation. We're going to try to keep it as close to our normal meetings as possible, but in the future, we'll still also try to adapt to the virtual environment as well with some different format things. But yeah, so that's how it'll go. Yeah, Henry's the host right now. So Henry, can you, does anyone have any questions?
All right, so I just went ahead and muted everyone, but you should have permission to unmute yourself. So if you want to talk, you can just unmute yourself and then turn your microphone back off when you're done.
Feel free to use the chat if you want to ask any questions, anything. Just keep it not profane as much as I can. We are recording this, and so we will be posting the meetings now on our YouTube page. Just look up SBU Astro Club. So for the people who can't join in synchronously with us, they will be going on after the fact, probably tonight or tomorrow, once the meeting is done being recorded. So yeah, thank you all for coming back. So we'll get right into it. We're talking about astronauts this week. If you weren't aware, NASA just had another astronaut call. The application was open on USA Jobs for all of March, and so we will be talking about it. But please sign in. We still want to keep our attendance numbers up. We still want money from USG. Show them that we are deserving. So you can sign in there. There's the link to the forum as well. I just put it in the chat. Or no. Now it's in the chat. Sorry, Sandhya. So yeah, there's the sign-in form. Please sign in. We also have a Discord channel, in case you aren't aware. Also, we hope you're reading the emails. The emails will become even more important now, as we need to get information to you in timely manners. But yeah, on the Discord is just another way for us to communicate outside of the club. There are different topics that you can talk about within the club Discord, like memes, space news, other things. It's just a fun environment. So feel free to join, interact.
I don't think we have a slide about it. Oh, wait, we do. You put one in.
Yes. And then I hope you've been reading the emails. We have e-board elections coming up. So this is the way that we run the club. This is how we continue as a club moving forward. We need people to run. I'm graduating, so I'm not going to be here next year. AL's not going to be on the board next year. So we need people to fill in some positions. So as of now, the way that the e-board is running, Henry will be running for president. Ishida will be running for vice president. And Perry will be running for secretary once again. We've only had one person officially reach out to us saying that they're running for treasurer. That was Fatin. So if you're interested in running, please let us know. The treasurer and public relations positions are both open. And so if you're interested in running, please let us know by next Wednesday by 5 p.m. because we have our e-board meeting right after that, and we'll be contacting the people who expressed interest in running. Are there any questions about e-board elections? If you have any questions about what the positions are, you could also feel free to email us, reach out to us. You can also run for secretary and VP as well if you don't think that the current e-board members are good enough. But I will say that they have done a good job. But yeah, you as a general body member are able to run for any position except for president. Any questions on anything relating to e-board elections? I'll pause for a little bit. Okay, if you do, feel free to ask later at any point.
All right, now on to space news. There hasn't been a ton of space news because so many things have been postponed or work has been halted due to the current pandemic, but we do have a few exciting things to share with you.
All right, so first up, WASP-76b. It's a planet that was discovered a couple of years ago, so it's not anything like a new discovery, but we did get some interesting findings with some recent data that we found. So it's a very hellish planet where it rains molten iron at night, so it's very not like a nice, friendly environment. Definitely would not recommend going there. A little too against my taste. Some quick stats on it. It's a hot Jupiter. It's about 640 light years away, and it's actually very close to its parent star. It's like 10 times closer than what Mercury is currently, and it is tidally locked, which means that one side always faces its host star, and the other side faces just eternal darkness. So there is a really painful dividing line across the actual exoplanet, which causes a varying temperature difference. The day side could actually reach up to 4,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And because of the way the planet works, there are strong winds. And the winds definitely do bring the irons that's on the day side over to the night side, where it condenses and forms these iron vapor clouds, which eventually becomes molten iron rain. There actually isn't any rain on the day side because the intense radiation from the star does break away the iron and just completely vaporizes it. But the cool fact about WASP-76b is that it has gigantic clouds. So if you go to like the next slide, you'll see a really nice image of like these gigantic towering clouds that divide up the day and night side. And it's thought that the night side has like really puffy, gigantic red clouds. So definitely a cool aesthetic. Would not recommend living there. Seems very painful, but it is pretty. So that's the one plus side.
In other space news, the worm is back. And if you don't know what the worm is, that's okay. I just learned what it was today. So it's a name for this logo of NASA, the nice squiggly letters. This logo was used up until, I don't know, like mainly in the 70s for different NASA missions. You're probably all most aware of the meatball, which is what the official logo is called, the blue one with the red swoosh. So they're called the meatball and the worm for whatever reason. But Jim Bridenstine, the director of NASA, just tweeted today that they're going to be putting this logo on the launch vehicles for, I think this is for the 2020 rover, or just they'll be planning to use it in general, which is cool. It's a pretty nice logo. Yeah.
All right, James Webb fully deployed. So despite everything that's happening, there is some good news. Early in March, NASA actually tested out the main primary mirror for the James Webb Space Telescope, which is notorious for being pushed away in terms of its deadline. But for the first time, the mirror was fully assembled and it works beautifully. So they are technically on a very, very late track, but it works. So that's the one.
to make sure, you could all hear that video, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, and now in a bit of topical space news that's also related to our topic of astronauts for today. A bunch of astronauts have done interviews or recorded videos about how they dealt with self-isolation, either during their space missions, or some astronauts had to be quarantined after coming back from the moon and things like that. So just a bit of wisdom from Chris Hadfield to help you through the current times.
Hi, I'm Chris Hadfield. I've spent a little time self-isolating on board a spaceship. How are you doing with self-isolation? You know, it's an extremely dangerous environment up on board the space station, and yet we find a way to thrive and be productive that far away from our normal lives. We do it through 4 different things. Number 1, understand the actual risk. Don't just be afraid of things. Go to a credible source and find out what is truly the risk that you're facing right now. You, your family, your friends, the people that you care about. And then, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your objectives? You know, what's your mission for right now? Make that clear for this afternoon, for this week, for the next month. What do you want to get done? Then look at your constraints. Who's telling you what you need to do? What financial resources do you have? What are your obligations? But once you understand the risk and your mission, your sense of purpose and your obligations, then take action. Start doing things. They don't have to be the things that you always did before. Take care of family, start a new project, learn to play guitar, study another language, read a book, write, create. It's a chance to do something different that you've maybe not done before. And then repeat. And of course, if you think you've been exposed to COVID, then, you know, if you've gotten closer than a couple arms length to people, then self-isolate. And if you have any symptoms, you know, a sore throat or a fever or a cough, then consult a physician. But there's never been a better time to self-isolate. So many people have access to the internet that you have the entire written work of everything, all the body of knowledge right there at your fingertips. So take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your friends, take care of your spaceship. And I wish everybody happy landings.
Thought that was a good bit of advice to share with you all. All right, now on to...
All right, so if you're ever bored during the quarantine, self-isolation or anything, there is a really cool website where you could go, you could help scientists classify galaxies, you could help transcribe old texts into like a more digitized way. If you scroll down, you could see more science-related things too. Yeah, so you have a bunch of things you could do. You could classify galaxies, different rocks in space, planets, variable stars. It's very fun.
There we go. All right.
Wait,
Now,
I have one more announcement. Henry, can I get screen sharing privilege?
yes. All right, you should be able to share your screen now.
Cool. Okay. Am I sharing? Can everyone see Neef?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So as you all know, Neef was canceled. Every year, we, the Astronomy Club, take a field trip to the Northeast Astronomy Forum, which is held in Rockland County, New York. And so this year, they are having a virtual experience this Saturday. So if you just go to neefexpo.com, you can go right on their home website, and they will still be having a one-day only event. So they'll still have their speakers talking, like world-class speakers. And I think other retailers are giving demos, answering questions, having deals. So if you want more info, you could just go onto their website. Once again, it's neefexpo.com. So yeah, sorry we couldn't take you all out there this year, but there's still a way for you to experience it this Saturday. It's going from what time? It's live streaming from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific. So, yes, that's all from me.
All right, and then I think you have to make me the host again. You just right click on me.
Alex, can you post that link in the chat?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, can you all see the presentation again?
Yep.
Okay. So on to our main topic for today. We are talking about astronauts, specifically about the astronaut application. But first, we'll give you a quick intro on a few cool astronauts, one that we already heard from today.
All right, so Chris Hadfield. Very cool dude. Yes, he has a master class. I do want to take it. It looks very interesting. But besides that, he spent a lot of time in space and did a lot of cool things in space, besides just the fact that he went there. He made the first ever music video in space. He made his own version of the Space Oddity, which I think Connor mentioned in the chat, which is awesome. He also recorded a bunch of videos answering cool science questions and just showing how life on the ISS works. He has videos on what it's like sleeping in space, crying in space, vomiting in space. So if you have any weird questions, there is a chance that he has a video on it, which again is super fun. Very cool dude who just plays the guitar. And I think he also does a lot of photography, or did photography while he was in space. So definitely something to check out.
Dom Pettit is another astronaut that I thought was kind of cool. So his little shtick that he does is he plays with yo-yos in space. So if you want to click on that video and show the world what he does. Thanks.
Oh, so far so good. Orbit the Earth. And so keeping it moving in an arc. There's 2, there's 3. Oh, how about that? Let's see if I can get it to come back.
So pretty cool. I thought kind of a different take on how you can maneuver a yo-yo. And so this, I think, to me, I was looking at these things and it just kind of goes along with what we were hearing before. You've got this period of time that you're sort of isolated. Maybe you've got a lot of time on your hands, aside from all the responsibilities that obviously astronauts have. And so, you can find some cool things to spend that time doing. So this guy got a little creative using a yo-yo in space. In fact, his first space mission was a 6-month stay on the ISS. So that's quite a bit of time that you're up there and, not really in contact with maybe a lot of your friends and family back on Earth. Another thing that he does, along with probably several other astronauts, is take the opportunity to take cool pictures while you're in space. So if you want to move on to the next slide now, there's just a picture of the Earth. Well, the next pictures will also be of Earth, but I thought this one was pretty cool. Go back to the last one for a second. Yeah, sorry, I just want to admire it for a second. I just think it's really cool because, obviously, like, the Earth is mostly water on the surface, but I don't know, I always kind of imagine like seeing some land, and here it's really just all this blue and some clouds and big blue ball instead of pale blue dot, but pretty cool, I thought. Next picture. So this is some aurora, again taken from the ISS. So it's really kind of spooky. And the next one, and more aurora, also taken from the ISS. So there's a lot of cool pictures that you can take the opportunity to take there, and it just kind of goes to show that you've got some time on your hands. You can explore some of your passions like graphic design or photography. All right.
Okay, so nowadays astronauts do live on the ISS. They work around, make sure the machinery is working, as well as doing a lot of experiments. But a couple of years ago, when they first launched Hubble, which was in 1990, astronauts also had another important job, which was fixing Hubble. Unfortunately, after launch, scientists found a flaw in Hubble's primary mirror. It was actually just a little aberration that was about 1/150th the thickness of a human hair, but even that made it, like, it was caused by an imperfect grinding of the mirror, and even that made images very, very, not very murky, but they weren't clear enough to get good data on. So there were numerous servicing missions to slowly start fixing Hubble's mirror, and one of the first servicing missions was done by astronauts Story Musgrave and Jeff Hoffman. And so in 1993, they went out, they did EVA, which is an extravehicular activity, for 7 hours and 54 minutes, which is actually one of the longest EVAs in history. It's, I believe, the 18th longest one so far. And they replaced some of the control units, the electrical circuits, and just did basic work on Hubble. And that kind of led to other servicing missions. I believe 5 astronauts in total have worked on fixing up the ISS. So when you're in space, you have to do a lot of other things than just, sitting around and looking cool floating in space. You have to go outside, brace the harsh climates, and just, fix telescopes.
Yeah, so since we're talking about the new the astronaut application and the new class of astronauts, it probably makes sense to talk a bit about what they might be doing in the future. So there's a lot of fun stuff coming up that astronauts are going to take part in, working on the ISS, obviously, but also Artemis. So Artemis is a mission to land humans on the moon by about 2024, and those selected to be astronaut corps to be in the astronaut corps this year will likely fly during those missions. So there's a lot of new technologies being planned for the for this mission, like new spacesuits, which you can see in the top right. The bulky white spacesuit is actually a suit to be worn on the moon while you're doing a moonwalk. The one on the right, the orange one, is actually a re-entry suit that you would wear in the spacecraft while you're coming back to Earth. And Artemis is going to take the Space Launch System, I believe, that NASA's developing. That's the big rocket underneath the spacesuits. And NASA is also planning to use what we learned from Artemis to help us get to Mars, which we're hoping to do. Henry, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. Which we're planning to do by the 2030s. So there's nothing completely set in stone with that mission, but it's probably going to happen at some point, if not the 2030s, maybe the 40s or the 50s, but it's probably coming. But there's a lot of challenges we have to deal with before we can send people to Mars, like the radiation in deep space, isolation, because they're going to have to be by themselves, well, in a group, but by themselves for about 3 years, because that's about how long a round trip would take. There's about a 20-minute time delay between Earth and Mars with communications to ground control. So they would have to spend a lot of, so if they come up with any issues, they would have to deal with them by themselves in the immediate term. There's also food, water, and air that they would have to manufacture, and there's a lot of other engineering challenges, but it's coming up, Mars. Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to look at the very boring looking application, but if any of you ever wondered what the application is actually like, we're just going to go through it. The application was live for all of March, so if you didn't get a chance to look at it, we're going to show you. If you even look for the application now for the astronaut position, you won't find it. It's like not existent anymore. So yeah, it's on USA Jobs. usajobs.gov is where all government jobs are listed on. And so you need to make an account first off, and then you search for astronaut, and this is what you see once you click on the listing. Yeah, so this is astronaut candidate. It's at the Johnson Space Center. You can see it closed March 31st. And so we're just gonna talk a bit about the application, some of the things that may arise while we look through it. We'll go into more detail as well. So yeah, first you have to put in your resume. you can actually upload your own resume. They have their own specific resume builder, which if you go to the next slide, we have some. So basically, you just job by job, put in your work experience. I'm sure you've all made a resume at some point, but they just have you put it in here. Next slide. Yeah, add other things that are relevant. Your education. So we'll talk about it a little bit more, but they've actually changed the education requirements since the last time there was an astronaut application and since the last time that we as a club talked about it. So it used to be that the base requirement was a bachelor's degree in some scientific field. Now, unless you have a pilot's license, the base level education requirement is a master's degree. So that just goes to show how much more competitive it's gotten and how much more technical and more experience that people need. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And once again, if you have questions at any point, feel free to ask either through the chat or you can unmute yourself. You add your references, as always, any job. Next. Talk about training that you may have done that's been relevant, like scuba diving, CPR training, anything that you think might be helpful. And we've talked about it in other meetings, but like lots of experience that you may not think is directly applicable can be. Some of the astronauts have like very varied backgrounds. Some are doctors and have been in the military. Some are like geologists. If you like, you can search up the latest astronaut class. They actually just graduated earlier this year or late last year. And some of them have like really diverse backgrounds, and it just goes to show, get as much as experience as you can. Even if you think something's not relevant, it could be relevant and can set you apart. So yes, I do say actually, one of the astronauts in the latest class, my favorite one, Jessica Watkins, she has a PhD in geology, specifically in planetary geology, which is what I'm going for. And so that's the route that I want to take. Language skills. It's good to know other languages. If you're going to be on the ISS, you're going to be interacting with people in different countries. Part of the astronaut training itself, once you get selected, is learning Russian, because they're such a large contributor to the ISS program. And as of now, we are still using Russian rockets to get to and from the International Space Station.
Alex, are you saying that you know no languages?
I didn't put that one in. I should have put that one in. I have like conversational Spanish. I taught myself a little bit of Japanese, but forgot it. And I was teaching myself some Russian, but I've since forgotten that as well.
Honestly, I'm barely human, so it doesn't even work.
Yep, just more stuff for the resume builder. Can keep going. Yeah, publications if you've done research. Any honors, awards, skills that you have, typing speed. So yeah, once that resume is done, next slide, then you just save it and then you upload your transcripts. So they want transcripts from all your institutions that you've attended, that you've gotten degrees from. I know more than just geology and breathing. And then, yeah, you just review your package and double check it, and then you just keep going on to the next step. There's a lot of double checking in this application. And then just include your personal information, your demographics. You don't have to, but they do it for every government job does that. And then they just double check that everything you're saying is true, because you can actually get arrested for providing false information it says in there, yeah, misrepresenting my education or experience, providing false information could be grounds for me not getting hired or fired after I begin working, and that fraud statements are punishable by a fine or imprisonment. So if I ended up clicking send at the end, I could have gotten arrested potentially, but I did not click submit, so it's okay. And then they have a cute little loading screen to go on to the next like external website. And then this is what the actual application looks like. And now it's just a bunch of questions. So you put in your personal security information, date of birth, social security. You could just drop your social security in the chat there and we'll put it into the application for you.
Do you need the number on the back of my credit card?
Yes, and the front and the expiration date.
Does Astronomy Club have a birthday? What's our birthday?
I don't know.
Wasn't there like an astronomy club in like the 70s or 80s or something?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean,
there was.
club has always existed, but just in the latest iteration of how clubs are organized.
Was it like 2012? Or no, it would be 2010, right? Or no, maybe it's 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
Are we 3E, 4E, 5E? Which version?
What do you
Alright, so
mean by
here's
E?
Pathfinder, like the rover.
Oh.
Hey.
I mean, if you're going that way, you might as well play Starfinder, which is just Pathfinder in space.
I mean, weren't we talking about D&D in the Discord? We could do this, man.
Brian, if you want to know more
Starfinder.
about my work experience, I'll talk about it when we get to the
Starfinder.
work experience.
and our social security number ends in 1234. There we go.
Okay.
All right.
So yes, then you put in your biographic information. I redacted all of mine. Highly classified, must have e-board status. Then they ask if you have any disabilities, whether mental or physical, that you think would be that would interfere with you completing the job. Then there are two different pay grades that you could have as an astronaut. They're called GS-13 and GS-14. So they're listed there. On the actual application, it listed the GS-14 one on the listing. GS-14 is generally reserved for supervisor positions in the government, but it's also for like highly technical positions, like an astronaut. So you can make some money being an astronaut. GS-15 is actually the highest pay level in the government, so GS-14 is one of the higher levels. And actually, I thought if you are getting paid at GS-14, your equivalent rank in the military is lieutenant colonel.
$105,000 a year still seems, a little low for someone risking their life going to space.
Well, I mean, maybe you get a space bonus because they're not in space for a while.
Yeah, I guess probably most of their employment is spent on Earth.
Yes.
But like my high school English teacher made more than that, so.
I got this gold coin in 5th grade of brass.
Is it worth $105,000?
No, but it means I broke the high score in the school on analogies and wordplay.
Thanks for sharing, Connor.
There is a bit of a difference between gold and brass.
It's brass. Maybe it's gold coated in brass. You never know.
So yeah, moving on. So yeah, then they ask for other skills or activities. So now would be the point where you talk about your underwater basket weaving abilities. I put mine as space meme design, conversational Spanish, only if you speak slowly, AL. And then I can bullshit a presentation on the fly. I learned that over the last 4 years, especially being in this club.
Should we add in some club skills here? What can the club do? Anyone? What are our club abilities?
Our memeing skills are on point.
On point.
I concur.
We're good at shitting on geology.
I was gonna say.
Did somebody say bold and brass? Brass?
Screaming really loud, like screaming space. Isn't that Tim's specialty though?
Yeah.
We can still put that as a club
I
ability.
can scream pretty loud. I'm not going to right now.
No, we
because,
know.
Like my parents are here in the other room, but
All right, screaming space. That's one of our abilities.
We are the Space Corps from Portal, incarnate in a single club.
Making groups of stars attack each other.
We know how
Hitting
to.
We have like
actually
reality warping
celestial
powers.
Objects against each
You
other.
have reality anchors from the SCP Foundation.
Listen, if bullshit's not on there, I'm leaving.
All right, there we go. All right, here's our
I
club
dropped
skills.
The car, I dropped the Lego guy. I don't know what he said.
All right, well, I think we beat out Alex's skills here. Look how many more skills we have.
Wow. Okay.
because he's a geologist.
So when I got that car, I decapitated a robot. So anyone want to say some last words?
All right. Moving on. So yeah, they want to know if you've applied before. Basically, have they rejected you before? And then how hard did they reject you? They want to know if you actually got to the interview stage or not. Asking about military service. Here's where you put that. Oh wow, look at this. I didn't even notice the Space Force.
Seems like kind of an advantage if you're applying to be an astronaut and you've already been to space.
But
Or
no
been
one-
trained to go to space. Well, yeah, no one has yet, but
You need a job to get a job, as the old saying goes.
Mhm.
is there anyone in the Space Force yet, or is there just like a general?
I have no idea.
It's just Trump by himself.
I would have said Captain James Hart, but okay, that works.
Oh yeah, we could put some Starfleet members in there.
You need a few red shirts as well, but like I'm not sure how long they would last.
Yeah, so then they ask about your education, when you got your master's or PhD, or actually if you can apply while you're in a PhD program if you've already completed 2 years, which is generally what the equivalent of a master's would be, or if you've gotten a MD, DO related doctoral degree, or if you have a test pilot license, went to test pilot school. So yeah, I'll hopefully be getting my degree in 2025, my PhD. Sometime around then from Purdue.
So in 2.5 years, you'll be applying to be an astronaut, right?
Well, whenever they open up the application again, I guess it's been about that long since the last one. I'll probably apply.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they have a wordy questionnaire asking about, like, basically, do you meet the education requirements? Go to the next slide. So yeah, are you educated? What best describes your education level? PhD, MD, master's, test pilot license if you just have a bachelor's, stuff like that. And then they kind of ask they give descriptions of different specific experience that you have, and they kind of ask what you best fit into. So either a pilot, flight test pilot, a doctor, physical scientist, or an engineer. So those are generally the types of experience that they're looking for. And then this is basically just the list of are you willing. So are you willing to undergo a drug test? Are you willing to undergo vision evaluations? Are you willing to undergo medical and psych evals? Are you willing to do physical activities? Are you willing to learn to fly? Are you willing to undergo a background check? Are you willing to do a swimming test? Are you willing to do underwater training? Are you willing to travel a lot? Are you actually, I thought this one was kind of dumb. Are you willing to be in space for long duration missions? And they define that as 12 months or longer. And I think if you're not, then you shouldn't really be applying to be an astronaut. And then they ask if you're willing to spend extended periods of time in smaller confined spaces. So basically, are you claustrophobic? And then, are you willing to be in potentially dangerous situations? Are you willing to represent the US space program to the public at like schools, organizations, businesses, military organizations, politicians, all that? Are you willing to undergo a bunch of training? So they list some of the training that you complete. So like spacecraft mission systems training, extravehicular activity skills training. So EVA for short, that's when the astronauts actually go on a spacewalk when they're actually outside of their spacecraft. Robotic skills training, Russian language training, aircraft flight readiness training, team skills training, among others. And then, are you still telling the truth? And having read all that, do you still wish to be considered or not? And then you upload all your applicable documents. And then you click submit. Now is the time where you actually feel like perjuring yourself and lying to the government, or actually going through with a real application, or weaning out, which is fine. Yeah, that's kind of the end of our application breakdown and about the astronaut application itself. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we covered?
I'm surprised that, like, I guess, you know, this is just like the first round of the application, but I still thought there would be some kind of like essay questions or something like that. I'm surprised it's so easy to complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering why they didn't ask about physical fitness requirements, because I know that's always a really serious thing for astronauts.
Right. I mean, they ask if you're willing to undergo that, and this is the first order eliminate people, whether they basically they're willing to do the things, and what if they like meet the education requirements. There are a lot of phases to this application process, and they cut a lot of people at each phase. Like, I think the last time they had an application pool was they had like thousands of applications, and there ended up being like around 10 slots.
Do we know what like any of the other phases of astronaut application is? Like what happens after they cut the first wave or after the second wave and stuff? Like,
Yeah.
clearly the interview, but after that, anything else?
So I don't know like how specific, but the person I'm actually going to go do my PhD with, she was in the top 32 for Canada's last astronaut call, and so I asked her a little bit about it. She said that they ended up coming in a lot for different testing, medical testing, psychological evals, different team building activities. They do a lot of that. She mentioned one test that she mentioned that they did was I think they were split up into like groups of 3 or 4, and basically had to put together a Lego set, but none of them could see each other, and they were separated by like across an entire gymnasium, I think, and then just had to like communicate like in a chain from one person to the next person, and that person communicated it to the last person. So the first person had the like actual instructions, and the last person was actually building the Lego set. So I thought that was pretty interesting in terms of like a communication and team building exercise. So things like that. I'm sure they undergo different like physical testing, probably like G-force testing if you can actually undergo like multiple times gravity. Alana asks, do you need letters of recommendation? You list your references on this stage. I don't know if they'll actually reach out to them at this stage. Probably not. They'd probably reach out to references later on. Physical fitness requirements. You have to have some level of physical fitness. They're going to be putting you through a lot of physical activity. Like on the ISS, they exercise for several hours a day in order to maintain their muscle mass, because when you're in space, you're undergoing less gravity and your muscles will atrophy a lot quicker if you're not using them. So being able to do cardio, being able to do weight training is part of being an astronaut in space. So if you have something that hinders your ability to do that, you probably would get cut at some point. Yeah. Any other questions? Feel free to ask any other questions. Or if anyone knows any other stages or knows stuff, feel free to add on. Also, please sign in.
I think currently the longest mission was a year when Scott Kelly and his twin, or in his twin stayed on Earth, right? So that was the whole year in space thing. So I think the whole bit with asking whether or not you're okay with staying a year is because that's a big extent, you know, for somebody to stay in space. So it's not really like just an average thing that a lot of people will do.
Right, but with the that like these classes are applying for, it being longer missions as we lunar missions and even going on to Mars. To actually go on to Mars, the trip to Mars takes 2 years, or no, it takes 6 months one way. So,
yeah, Alex, your microphone is giving a lot of noise. We can't quite hear you.
I think, yeah, the trips to Mars are at least 6 months either way, yeah, but like it's not a year straight in space. I think that's more what they're asking.
Right, but they're asking because they're claiming to have.
Alex, you have to stop talking. Your mic is totally fucked.
You sound deep fried.
Oh, Brian, I noticed your background there. I like that.
Oh, you like my background?
Does this sound any better?
Okay, you're better, Alex.
Yeah, you're good
so
now.
Yeah, they're asking that because they're probably planning missions that would be a year or longer. So
yeah, especially with like even before going to Mars, just with the Artemis program, I think they want to create a more permanent presence on the moon. So that would probably be more than just like I think it was like an 8-day trip for the Apollo missions from the time they left Earth to the time they got back. Now astronauts would probably be staying for months at a time or more on some kind of base on the moon or some kind of orbital station around the moon, depending on how exactly the Artemis missions get planned. Any other questions about the presentation? Anything we talked about? Questions about the club? Suggestions for us of things we could do digitally?
I miss you guys.
Thanks, Robert. We miss all of you too.
Yeah, miss you too.
Yeah.
Corona is so extra.
Let's see. So we can't.
So people want to do Kahoot.
In
Yeah, that-
space.
Space Kahoot.
Space Kahoot.
Here I was just looking at the live view from the space station to see if we could do any observing, but
Yeah.
currently.
Maybe Space Kahoot can be like the Jeopardy thing we were planning at the end of the year. Like, one of you guys make a Kahoot on all the PowerPoints and stuff, and who actually pays attention.
That would be cool. We could also just see if there's probably some kind of astronomy Kahoot that we could all do if that's something we want to do. But if we don't have any further club business, I think we'll probably end the meeting recording now. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Alex, other eBoard
Yeah.
members?
So yeah, make sure if you're interested in running, please send us an email. Yeah, that's the only upcoming pressing information.